So Justin, you are taking a look at Pokemon Sun and Moon for us, and your review in progress went up late last night, this morning.
Early this morning.
Okay, it's up on site now, and not a lot we can talk about, unfortunately.
Not a lot of specific details. Can talk in very broad strokes about the new mechanics and where the story is kind of heading. We are under embargo for specific stuff after, I think, basically the third island. But I think if you tried out the demo for the game, you've already gotten a good feel for some of the big changes they've made to the game.
Yeah, so quality of life stuff for the most part, like that kind of the big thing?
I think that's the most immediate. Like, as someone who's played a lot of the games, when you come into it, mechanically, it feels very, very different in an incredibly positive way. Like, every game has played around with the way the menus work and trying to... it feels like they try to make things a little bit easier, but this is the first one where it's like these changes are not only really sweeping, but super positive. I think one of my favorite, the thing that stood out for me the most, is that after you meet a creature for the first time, when you meet any creature a second time, you can see immediately, looking at your attacks, what's effective, what's not effective, what's going to have no effect. Like, that was always so annoying to me when you come up against a guy and you're like, well, I have a new move, or this is a steel fairy, and I'm a dark electric. Should I use ghost?
Gosh. But by and large, this is Pokemon, right? Like, so much of it is, I'm sure, the same, right? Jake, let me jump to you. You've been playing a little bit?
I've been playing quite a bit. I'm not quite as far as he is,
Okay.
But I think one of the big sort of structural differences is the fact that there's not 8 gym leaders this time around. And people who've been following this know this already, but instead there's 4 islands, I think, right? And each island has a certain amount of trials you need to complete before you go to the final trial. Once you do 4 of them, I don't know what happens after that.
Can we talk about like the broad, big story? Like, what are you actually doing here? If you're not trying to become the best that you can be.
So you are still trying to become the best,
okay.
But you're in a different set. So now there are 4 main islands,
right.
And there is a really strong trainer on each island who's called the Kahuna. Because this is it's a Hawaiian theme, and you have to build up to fighting the Kahuna. When you fight the Kahuna, you're like, well, you're the best dude, or the best girl if you choose to create a girl. I actually play as a girl on my Pokemon adventure, but you become the best in that island, and then you can move on to the next island and face these new trials. And the trials themselves are set up similar to gyms, and I think we saw a little bit of variety with what you can do in a gym in previous games, but this one takes it in a very, very different direction. For one, when you go through some of these trials, some of them will be quizzes. Like, it's not necessarily just, here are 3 trainers and you fight them and maybe do a little bit of a mini game and then move on to the final guy and he'll give you the badge, and everybody has rock Pokemon. Like, there can be a kind of a variety of different Pokemon that you'll fight within these trials. Sometimes you have to take pictures of them. There was one that has
Wait, take pictures?
It's not quite Pokemon Snap, but and this is something that we saw in the demo as well, where you would go into an area and you have to look into like this little rock wall, and there's a Pokemon who's walking by, and you have to try to take a picture of him with your camera.
Okay.
Which is, it's fun. It's quirky. It's changing it up. And the other thing is, you're not actually fighting trainers in these battles. You're fighting Pokemon directly. Like, these are just pissed off Pokemon, and you're going to fight them on their own. And one of them, once you reach the end of the trial, is going to be a super powered up version.
Why are these Pokemon so angry?
The island life, they're bugging them.
Island fever,
super stressful.
They're being really relaxed, and then you're coming in, you're intruding on their vacation time. I'd be kind of pissed off too. And they get super powered up with their Z move, so that's I guess the other new mechanic, which it kind of bears resemblance to Mega Evolutions and stuff they've played around with in other previous games, but now that you have these Z moves, and the Pokemon that you fight in these trials also have this super powered up Z move ability, which I actually don't use a lot, mostly because the first thing that I do when I play any Pokemon game is turn off all battle animations, because it takes such a long time. Like, I want to get through this as quickly as possible.
It's true. I do it too.
And so, but the Z move, even if you turn off battle animations, you still have to watch that.
They're like 30 seconds.
Yeah, and it's like Knights of the Round. It's not actually that bad, but it is that feeling of, well, now I have this superpower. I'm not going to use this superpowered move just because it takes so long to watch it.
Do they show you the strength of those too? Because like I used one on a powered up Pokemon or whatever, and it was supposed to be super effective and it didn't do much, and then I just used like Ember and it did more, and I was like, all right, never using that again.
So the superpowered move you have is usually a reflection of one of your other moves.
Okay.
So it'll tell. It'll generally say like which one that. So the thing that you equip is equipped to a certain type of move. So the names for these are totally dumb. It's like Normalium Z for normal moves. And if you attach it to a Pokemon, Fireamium Z, Bugamium Z, like for bug moves. When you attach it to that, it'll power up your that specific normal move.
Buganium Z is for dark.
Yeah, get it straight, Justin.
So like, oh, if I use this specific move, it'll power it up. And then for each of the starter Pokemon, they also have a crystal for that specific Pokemon. So I started with Owlet, who turns into Duodecim, and you get Duodecimium Z to power up his ghost move.
How do you feel about the starters this time around? Are they as lovable as a Bulbasaur, as a Charmander?
Well, no. They're never going to be as lovable as the originals, but I really like the owl because he's adorable. And he has a little bow tie.
As owls do.
I think the weird thing with Pokemon is that whenever you look at the way that they're dressed, the way that they're outfitted, the way that we think about them being outfitted, is those aren't outfits. That's a part of their biology. So it's like when you look at a cute cat and you're like, oh, the way his fur is grown, and it looks like he has eyebrows and a bow tie. And we're like, well, when you look at this owl that looks like he has a nice bow tie, that's something that's protruding from his skin. Like it's probably flaps of skin popping out.
All right.
Tight. Can we talk about how many Pokemon are in this game?
I think they've said that there's...
Yeah, I think they've said, but I don't know what it is.
Like something over 7. They've added a bunch of new Pokemon, and I think the current number is well over 700.
Are they benefiting from continually adding so many Pokemon game after game? Or
I haven't felt that for a long time.
Yeah.
My brain, I can't fit any more Pokemon names in my head after the third generation. I just see them and I'm like, oh, cool. There's another one.
The issue is they keep adding new Pokemon, though, especially in the beginning. Like you had the first game, and then the second game was like, well, we need to have a whole new set of Pokemon. But those first Pokemon were pretty good. Let's just make a copy of those, and it felt really similar. Like you start out with, oh, I met Shitty Rat. Oh, here's Crappy Bird. And then the third game was like, oh, well, let's make another dumb rat and another dumb bird.
You hate rats and birds. I'm with you though. Pests.
So this one's definitely better. I think X and Y did similar things, and now Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, of course, reintroduced the same Pokemon you saw before. But even as the new games, they've realized, well, we have to go with the ones that you're familiar with and the ones you like, and the new ones that we introduce have to be a little bit different. And one of the things they're doing different with Sun and Moon are variants on existing Pokemon, and they've shown some with you have Doug Trio, who has this long hair, and
luscious hair,
and I think it's a steel type now instead of ground.
Makes sense.
I don't know which ones I can specifically talk about and not talk about, but I know that one I can.
I know they've showed the Raichu already.
Is Raichu different? I haven't caught a Raichu.
Well,
I think it's still the same.
Okay.
I feel like they've showed Grimer, and Grimer's
fight it out.
Pokemon
colorful. Battle it out. Come on.
Grimer's a completely different type. It's not poison, and that's also a little bit hard.
Like garbage, though.
Yeah,
literal
garbage.
Colorful.
It's like a puddle of garbage.
A colorful puddle of garbage. That's a cool band name.
If you guys are a little tired of all the new Pokemon, why do you keep playing?
I wouldn't say
Skull.
I'm tired.
Team Skull.
Just because every time they show up, they look so stupid. Oh man. They I don't know if I should hate them or I don't know.
What do you think about the way they talk? Because this was something you saw in the beginning of the game, you saw in the demo. They have a very distinctive.
I don't know. It's
kind of like watching Breaking Bad and Jesse, the Jesse character.
Yeah, they're all kind of like Jesse Eisenberg.
Yo, dude, man, yo, dog, I got my Pokemon coming, homie. But they're all super white.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he just wrecked us.
But in general, has Nintendo and the Pokemon Company reached that logical conclusion at this point? I feel like they kind of have, maybe a couple games ago.
Well, I mean, a logical creative conclusion, maybe in some ways, but not a logical sales conclusion.
Well, no.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah. But from your perspective, you're not trying to give them money. You're trying to have a game that you enjoy and play it because there's something new about it. Do you really feel like it's the new things that are bringing you back, or is it just nostalgia for Pokemon?
I feel like for previous games, it was definitely nostalgia. And Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, most of my enjoyment for that, I think it had some nice additions to the series, but it was primarily nostalgia that kept me going along on that. Whereas Sun and Moon definitely feels like big additions that needed to be brought to the game for a long time. And if someone if you haven't played for a long time, I feel like this is a good way to get back into it. If you've always hated Pokemon, if you're like, I've tried it, and Pokemon is about catching and leveling up monsters, and that's really boring. Well, it still is. Like, that core nugget of what the game is about is still the same. It's just now it's a better game. It feels like it's tighter, it's more streamlined. It's taken out a lot of the things that it felt like they held on to just because, well, we've been doing the series for a long time and that's the way we used to do it, so let's keep doing it the boring way.
Right.
It feels like they've solved that in a lot of ways. There are too many Pokemon. I think if you're coming into this for the first time, like, that's just going to be overwhelming. But even coming at it from a review perspective, where I'm trying to play as much as I can as quickly as possible, it adds to the feel of each area that you're not running into the same Pokemon over and over again. Like, that each area, even within these islands, can feel very distinctive because I'm running into Pokemon that are familiar, Pokemon that are new, and each island has its own diverse ecology in that way.
That's a very good point. Jake, any input?
I agree with what he said. I mean, I've played all the Pokemon games, and I've been looking forward to this for a while, and I agree. Like, it definitely feels way more streamlined. But I think part of the reason why I'm still playing Pokemon games is because they don't come out that often, right? It's like, I think the last one was 3 years ago. So, like, if there was one every year, I would definitely get sick of this formula so fast because it is repetitive. It's very repetitive. But, like, I'm feeling like playing a Pokemon game. I'm feeling like playing one for a while now. So Sun and Moon is scratching that itch.
Right. Yeah, and it's something I don't necessarily want on a bigger console. Like, they wait long enough to bring them out that it's years between releases, but it's something that fits really well with their portable systems, and it's something that definitely wouldn't be as much fun on a full console, both because I like to play it in kind of short spurts, and I like to be able to share that experience with friends. So like Nintendo Switch can change up that formula drastically because it is potentially a console that will be more portable in some ways, and I admit it would be nice to look at it in a little bit more HD. The game looks better, but it's still a little pixelated around the edges. Like, it could be cooler on Switch, but the experience that they have now, like, graphics aren't as incredibly important, and just that experience of sharing with friends and playing around a new island with new Pokemon, it's fun.
All right, and your full review should be coming
this Friday,
shortly after launch this Friday. Mm-hmm. All right, well, you can check out Justin's review in progress right now on GameSpot.com. Come back later in the week for his full review.